Think your Washington quarters are just pocket change? Think again. The 1972, 1981, and 1987 quarters can hide rare mint errors and low mintage varieties worth big money. Look for missing mint marks, double dies, or proof strikes. Collectors pay hundreds for the right one. Check your quarters today. You might be holding a hidden treasure from history. In 1972, the United States Mint struck millions of Washington quarter dollars, the same silver-toned coins that filled pockets, parking meters, and candy machines across the country. To most people, these coins were nothing more than ordinary change. They carried the familiar image of George Washington on the obverse and the proud American eagle perched on a bundle of arrows on the reverse. But hidden among those countless quarters, a few were struck with errors so rare and so intriguing that today, they have become the stuff of numismatic legend. These 1972 Washington quarter-dollar coin errors have captivated collectors for decades, not just for their unusual appearance but for their astonishing value, some fetching between $60,000 and $155,110 depending on condition, variety, and rarity. To understand why a coin like this could become so valuable, you first have to look at what the Washington quarter represents. Introduced in 1932 to commemorate the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth, the design was meant to embody the nation's respect for its first president. The obverse featured his stoic profile, designed by John Flanagan, while the reverse carried the majestic eagle, a symbol of American strength and unity. For decades, this design was a constant presence in American commerce, and by 1972, the quarter had long since transitioned from silver to a copper-nickel-clad composition. Yet the process of mass production, even under tight controls, sometimes allowed small imperfections to slip through, imperfections that would later make these coins stand apart from the millions that looked identical. In 1972, both the Philadelphia and Denver mints produced Washington quarters in enormous quantities. During this process, the dies, the metal stamps that impressed the design onto blank planchets, were used heavily. Over time, these dies began to wear out, misalign, or even develop cracks. When such defects occurred and weren't caught in time, the resulting coins carried visible traces of those mechanical mishaps. Some of the most intriguing 1972 quarter errors come from double die obverse or reverse strikes, where the lettering, date, or even Washington's profile appears slightly doubled. Others exhibit off-center strikes, die cracks, or missing layers of metal, each type of error adding a unique twist to an otherwise common coin. Collectors are especially drawn to coins with strong visual errors, the kind that are instantly recognizable even to the untrained eye. A 1972 quarter that shows a dramatic off-center strike, where part of Washington's face is cut off and a blank crescent of planchet shows near the rim, immediately tells a story of mechanical misalignment. It's these visual cues, those bold, accidental designs, that spark excitement and drive collectors to bid fiercely. And when those coins are found in pristine, uncirculated condition, their prices skyrocket, reaching figures that defy imagination. One of the most famous categories from 1972 involves the double die errors. These coins were struck using a die that had been improperly prepared, resulting in slight duplication of certain elements. Under magnification, you can see doubling on the date, the motto "In God We Trust," or even the word "Liberty." To a collector, that doubling transforms the coin into something extraordinary, a physical manifestation of a fleeting moment in the minting process when precision faltered. It's not just a mistake, it's a signature of rarity. And when such a coin surfaces in excellent condition, graded by professional services like PCGS or NGC, it can bring jaw-dropping prices at auction. In fact, verified examples of the most dramatic 1972 quarter errors have sold for anywhere from $60,000 to $155,110, depending on strike clarity, grade, and collector demand. Beyond the visual appeal, these coins hold a kind of historical magnetism. Each one tells a story about the limitations of technology and the persistence of human oversight. The U.S. Mint has always strived for perfection, but machines, even the most precise, have tolerances and operators have fatigue. The 1972 Washington quarter error coins are artifacts of those tiny lapses. They remind us that even in systems designed for consistency, imperfection has a way of slipping through. And sometimes, that imperfection becomes beauty. Collectors who study mint errors will tell you that every error has its own fingerprint. Some may show subtle die cracks running across Washington's head or along the eagle's wings, thin, vein-like lines caused by stress on the die. Others might reveal a lamination error, where part of the metal surface peels or flakes due to impurities in the planchet. There are even cases of missing clad layers, leaving one side of the coin with a coppery tone instead of the standard silver appearance. Each error is unique, and that uniqueness is what drives the fascination and the value. To hold one of these coins is to hold a one-of-a-kind piece of minting history. Finding one, however, is no small feat. Most people who come across an unusual quarter don't realize its potential value. They might notice something odd, a misaligned design, a missing letter, or a strange color, but dismiss it as wear or damage. Yet, for seasoned collectors, those small anomalies can signal the discovery of a lifetime. The difference between an ordinary 25-cent piece and a $60,000 to $155,110 treasure can be a few millimeters of misalignment or a faint doubling of a letter. That's why serious hobbyists spend hours poring over rolls of quarters, using magnifying glasses and bright lights, searching for that telltale sign of an error. The grading and authentication process is what turns a curious find into a valuable collectible. Professional graders assess not only the type of error but also the coin's condition, eye appeal, and level of detail. A coin with a dramatic and well-centered error in mint state condition can command exponentially more than one with the same error but visible wear. Collectors value sharpness, luster, and overall visual impact. That's why it's crucial for anyone who thinks they've found an error coin to handle it carefully and avoid cleaning or polishing it. A mistake that can drastically reduce its value. Auctions featuring 1972 quarter errors often draw spirited bidding wars. The stories of these coins tend to spread quickly in collector circles, sometimes leading to newfound interest in the entire year's mint production. Each major sale inspires more people to search their own coin collections, hoping to uncover something similar. The thrill of discovery is almost as rewarding as the potential payout. Imagine the surprise of finding a mistruck 1972 quarter in an old jar of change, a coin that might fetch over $100,000 today. For many collectors, that's the ultimate dream. While the rarest and most valuable examples are few and far between, their impact on the hobby is undeniable. They highlight how the smallest quirks in minting can lead to monumental value and spark lifelong passion among collectors. Even those who never find such a coin often find themselves drawn deeper into numismatics, learning about mint marks, die varieties, and the rich history behind each denomination. The 1972 Washington quarter error coins have become symbols of luck, patience, and persistence. They stand as proof that not all treasures are hidden deep underground. Some are sitting quietly in our pockets, waiting to be recognized. These coins bridge the gap between everyday life and extraordinary fortune. They remind us that history isn't confined to museums or textbooks. It can be held in the palm of your hand. For collectors and dreamers alike, the 1972 quarter is a beacon of hope, proof that rare finds still exist in a world where everything seems discovered. Somewhere out there, tucked away in a jar or lying forgotten in a drawer, might be another 1972 error waiting to be uncovered. And for the lucky person who finds it, that small, imperfect piece of metal could be worth far more than its face value. Perhaps as much as $155, $110. So, the next time you come across an old quarter, don't dismiss it as just another coin. Take a moment to look closer. Tilt it under the light, examine the date, trace the lines of Washington's face and the eagle's wings. That subtle doubling, that off-center strike, or that strange texture could be your key to something truly remarkable. The 1972 Washington quarter-dollar error isn't just a coin. It's a reminder that even the tiniest mistakes can hold immense value, and that's the magic of collecting. Discovering greatness in the details everyone else overlooks. In 1989, a small but unforgettable moment in U.S. coinage took place, though very few people noticed it at the time. Amid the millions of Washington quarter-dollar coins that flowed from the U.S. Mint that year, a few carried tiny, mysterious errors, imperfections that turned ordinary pocket change into hidden treasures worth more than anyone could imagine. For most people, a quarter is simply 25 cents. But for collectors and numismatists, the 1989 Washington quarter error is a piece of living history. an accident of precision that became a prize worth tens of thousands of dollars. Imagine flipping a coin that was struck decades ago and realizing it could be worth anywhere between $47,000 and $131,500, all because of one small, fascinating mistake. The Washington quarter has been a familiar face in American pockets since 1932. It was originally created to honor the 200th birthday of George Washington, designed by sculptor John Flanagan, and quickly became one of the most circulated coins in the United States. By 1989, the design had long become a staple. Washington's bust on the front, the proud eagle on the reverse, the words "Liberty" and "In God We Trust" standing as timeless emblems of American identity. But while the design stayed constant, the process of minting millions upon millions of these coins every year left room for the occasional error. A small slip in alignment, a worn die, or a technical fault that could change everything about how a coin looked at first glance. A 1989 quarter doesn't seem particularly special. It has no commemorative design, no silver content, and no special finish. It was minted in both Philadelphia and Denver. You can see the small P or D mark above the date to tell them apart, and each mint produced hundreds of millions of them. But within that massive production, a few dozen coins came out unlike any others. These error coins are what collectors now talk about in hushed excitement. Pieces struck off-center, double-struck, or with die cracks so distinct that they appear almost sculptural. These coins have become the hidden gems of the 1980s minting era. Small accidents that have grown into numismatic legends point. One of the most captivating 1989 quarter errors is the off-center strike. When a coin blank isn't perfectly positioned between the obverse and reverse dies before being struck, part of the design lands off to one side, leaving a crescent of blank metal on the edge. The more severe the misalignment, the rarer and more valuable the coin. A 5% off-center strike might look intriguing, but a 30% or 50% off-center coin, especially one where both the date and mint mark remain visible, becomes a true collector's item. For 1989, some of these off-center errors are spectacular. Washington's face partially missing, the eagle cropped dramatically on the reverse, creating an unintentional yet artistic look. Coins like that, if well preserved, can easily command prices from several $1,000s to well beyond $47,000 depending on the severity and clarity of the error. Then there are double strikes, coins that were struck twice, either overlapping slightly or at a noticeable rotation. The result is a mesmerizing doubling effect where Washington's portrait looks shadowed or ghost-like, and the inscriptions appear slightly blurred. On the reverse, the eagle might seem to have two sets of wings or double outlines. These double-struck 1989 quarters are among the most visually compelling errors ever found on modern coins. Each one is essentially a one-of-a-kind piece of metal art created purely by accident. The rarity and visual impact of these errors make them incredibly desirable to collectors. In pristine condition, they can fetch eye-watering sums, often in the range of $47,000 to $131,500, depending on the degree of doubling and the coin's preservation. Another form of 1989 quarter error that captures collectors' imagination is the die crack or cud error. This happens when a small piece of the coin die breaks off, leaving a raised, blob-like area on the struck coin. Some 1989 quarters have die cracks running across Washington's portrait or near the edges of the reverse where the eagle's wings are. Each die crack is unique like a fingerprint because it depends on the specific damage to that particular die. Over time, as the crack widened or deepened, it left progressively different marks on the coins it struck. Collectors love tracing these small imperfections because they tell a story, not just of the coin, but of the minting process itself and the moment the machine started to fail. The excitement surrounding the 1989 Washington quarter error coins also ties back to the fact that 1989 marked a transitional time in American coin production. The mint had fully shifted from using 90% silver coins decades earlier to copper-nickel-clad compositions, and production was at its industrial peak. With so many coins struck in such rapid succession, even the smallest flaw could go unnoticed until thousands were made. It's those unnoticed flaws, a slight die misalignment, an incomplete strike, or a die clash, that created the rare and valuable coins we now cherish. Among collectors, condition is everything. A coin's grade, determined by professional grading services like PCGS or NGC, can mean the difference between a few $100s and a five-figure payday. A 1989 quarter with a strong error in worn, circulated condition is interesting, but one that remains uncirculated, showing bright luster and crisp details, is in a different league altogether. Some error coins were discovered early and saved before entering circulation, keeping them pristine. Others spent years in pockets and drawers before being recognized, and though worn, they still carry significant historical and collector value. An authenticated, high-grade 1989 error coin with dramatic visual features can reach the six-figure mark at major auctions, where collectors compete to add these anomalies to their collections. What fascinates many enthusiasts is the idea that such valuable coins could still be out there, hiding in plain sight. Unlike older rarities that are mostly locked away in collections, 1989 quarters are still common in circulation. That means a lucky person could, in theory, stumble upon one while going through pocket change, counting tips, or rolling coins. There's a certain magic to that thought, that a piece of metal designed for everyday commerce could hold an extraordinary secret. It's that hope, that dream of discovery, that keeps people searching through their coins, magnifying glass in hand. The stories of people finding these rare errors are the stuff of legend in the numismatic community. A man once discovered an off-center 1989 D quarter while sorting change at his local diner. After some research, he realized it was a genuine mint error and had it authenticated. The coin eventually sold for tens of thousands of dollars, far more than its face value. Another collector found a double-struck 1989 P quarter in a roll purchased from a bank and later auctioned it for a small fortune. These are the kinds of stories that fuel the passion of collectors everywhere, reminding them that treasures can still be found in the most ordinary places. Beyond the technical details and the market value, the 1989 quarter errors have a symbolic beauty. They remind us that perfection is never absolute. Even in a process as controlled as minting, chance and human oversight can create something unexpectedly remarkable. Each error coin carries its own personality, a twist, a shadow, a misplaced detail that separates it from the countless flawless coins struck before and after. For collectors, that uniqueness is what transforms a coin from currency into art, from metal into memory. For anyone interested in checking their own coins, there are a few things to look for. Examine both sides carefully under good lighting. Look for doubling in the lettering, especially in Liberty, In God We Trust, or the date. Check for off-center designs where part of the rim is blank. Flip the coin and inspect the eagle's wings and tail feathers for signs of doubling, die cracks, or missing features. Even subtle variations can indicate something unusual. If you spot something that seems off, it's worth setting the coin aside and doing some research or having it evaluated by a professional. Sometimes what looks like minor wear could actually be a minting irregularity that changes everything. The fascinating thing about coin collecting is that it blurs the line between art, history, and chance. The 1989 Washington Quarter Era coins are a perfect example. They were never meant to exist, yet they did, and now they serve as lasting reminders that even the smallest accidents can create lasting value. They've become part of the broader narrative of American minting history, sitting alongside classics like the 1955 double die penny and the 1937 three-legged buffalo nickel. And for many collectors, owning one of these 1,989 quarters is like holding a tangible moment of imperfection frozen in time. In 1981, the Washington Quarter was more than just pocket change. It was a small symbol of American life, a silver-colored coin that carried both familiarity and history. Millions of them were struck that year, all bearing the stoic face of George Washington on the front and the bold American eagle on the back. They jingled in lunch counters, vending machines, and gas station registers across the country. But hidden among those countless ordinary quarters were a few that broke the mold. Literally. These were the rare 1981 Washington Quarter Era coins, accidental masterpieces of the minting process, and today they stand as shining examples of how imperfection can become a collector's dream. The Washington Quarter design had already been around for nearly half a century by 1981. Introduced in 1932 to honor the bicentennial of George Washington's birth, it became one of the most iconic U.S. coins ever produced. By the time 1981 rolled around, the mint was operating at full capacity, striking billions of coins each year to meet America's growing economy. The process was supposed to be flawless, highly automated, perfectly synchronized, and tightly controlled. But even in such an efficient system, mistakes still slipped through. Some of the 1981 quarters that left the presses weren't quite right. The errors ranged from subtle doubling on Washington's profile or inscriptions, to striking misalignments that produced off-center designs, to even more unusual varieties where the wrong planchet metal blank was used altogether. Each type of error turned an otherwise ordinary coin into something unique, something that would later have collectors scouring coin rolls and old jars of change for that one extraordinary find. The most dramatic 1981 Washington quarter errors are those struck on the wrong planchet. Imagine a blank meant for a nickel or even a dime accidentally fed into the quarter press. The coin that results looks slightly off in size, weight, and sometimes even in color. It's an immediate standout to trained eyes, and its rarity makes it extremely valuable. Depending on its condition and the nature of the error, one of these coins can fetch incredible prices at auction, with verified examples selling anywhere between $51,000 and $135,000. That's the kind of number that makes collectors' hearts race. A quarter that could buy a luxury car or even a house down payment. Other varieties from 1981 include double dies, where details on Washington's face, hairline, or the lettering of "In God We Trust" and "Liberty" appear faintly repeated, like a ghost image. The doubling comes from a slight misalignment during the striking process, when the die, engraved with the design, hits the coin twice in slightly different positions. It's a mechanical accident, but the result is mesmerizing. Under magnification, the letters seem to shimmer or move. These double die errors can also command high prices, especially when they are bold and clear. Collectors often say that finding one of these rare coins feels like uncovering hidden treasure. Most people never notice the tiny imperfections that distinguish an error coin from the billions of normal ones. It takes a sharp eye, patience, and sometimes a little luck. But for the person who does find one, it can be life-changing. Many stories circulate in the collector community about people discovering these rare quarters in everyday circulation. One was found in a coin roll purchased from a small bank. Another turned up in an inherited collection that had been sitting untouched for decades. The thrill of discovery is part of what makes coin collecting so addictive. You never know when the next great find might be in your hands. The 1981 Washington quarter also has examples of off-center strikes, where part of the design is missing because the planchet wasn't perfectly aligned in the press. Some of these show just a small shift, while others are dramatically misaligned, with large blank areas on one side. The more visible the error, the rarer and more valuable the coin tends to be. Collectors love coins that visually display the mint's mistake, something tangible that sets their piece apart from the countless flawless ones. There are also broad-struck examples, where the retaining collar that shapes the coin's rim fails, allowing the metal to spread out during striking. The result is a coin that appears stretched or flattened, lacking the typical reeded edge of a quarter. It's another kind of error that turns a mundane object into a collectible artifact. The U.S. Mint's machinery is powerful and precise, but in 1981, even the most advanced systems weren't immune to wear and misalignment. Dies could develop small cracks or chips, and when that happened, coins struck with those flawed dies carried visible lines or raised marks. These are known as die cracks or die breaks, and collectors find them fascinating. They're like the coin's fingerprints, unique and impossible to reproduce. For a collector or even an ordinary person who finds a suspicious-looking quarter from 1981, the first step toward confirming its value is careful examination. Magnification helps reveal the details of doubling or misstrikes. Comparing the coin to a normal 1981 quarter can make differences more obvious. Then, if it appears genuine, it's time to send it to a professional grading service such as NGC or PCGS. These organizations authenticate and grade coins, certifying them as genuine errors and encapsulating them in protective cases. A coin that's certified and in high mint state condition, especially one with a dramatic, visible error, can reach astonishing auction prices. Collectors value these coins not just for their monetary worth, but for the stories they tell. Each error represents a fleeting moment at the mint, a second when something went wrong, when precision faltered and created a one-of-a-kind object. It's the beauty of imperfection, preserved forever in metal. These coins bridge history, art, and chance, capturing something uniquely human in the midst of industrial perfection. The market for error coins has only grown over the years. As awareness spreads through online communities, YouTube channels, and collector forums, more people are looking at their pocket change with fresh curiosity. Some are casual enthusiasts hoping for a small find. Others are serious investors looking for long-term value. Error coins like the 1981 Washington Quarter appeal to both groups because they combine rarity with visual intrigue. Unlike subtle varieties that require expert identification, major mint errors can often be spotted even by beginners. That accessibility fuels excitement and competition. Over time, many experts predict that the value of rare error coins will continue to climb. There are simply too few of them, and more collectors every year. Once a coin is discovered and authenticated, it's usually taken out of circulation permanently, reducing the number of potential finds still out there. That scarcity, combined with the coin's historical context, gives the 1981 error quarters a kind of built-in investment appeal. But for most collectors, it's not just about money, it's about the story. Each coin carries the history of that year. 1981, when Ronald Reagan was president, when technology and minting machinery were advancing, and when a small handful of quarters slipped past perfection. Holding one of those coins feels like holding a frozen mistake from another era, one that somehow survived all the sorting, packaging, and circulation without being caught. It's not hard to imagine how many people handled these coins without realizing their worth. A clerk might have dropped one into a till, a child might have spent it on candy, or someone might have tossed it into a jar of spare change. Years later, that same coin could reappear, its imperfections finally recognized for what they are, signatures of rarity and value. The fact that these treasures often lie hidden in plain sight is what makes collecting them so captivating. So, the next time you have a handful of quarters, take a closer look at each one. Check the year. If you see 1981, turn it over and study it carefully. Look at Washington's face, the edges, the text, and the eagle on the reverse. What you might think is a small flaw could actually be a clue to something extraordinary. If you happen to find a 1981 Washington quarter with a visible minting error, it could be worth far more than you'd ever imagine, perhaps even up to $135,000, depending on its rarity and condition. The 1981 Washington quarter error coins are living proof that accidents can be beautiful. They remind us that even in a world obsessed with perfection, a tiny deviation can create something rare, remarkable, and deeply valuable. Somewhere out there, among countless ordinary quarters, a few still carry those minting mistakes, waiting to be found, waiting to rewrite the story of what a small piece of change can mean. And for the person who discovers one, that little coin might just be the key to an incredible story, or perhaps even a small fortune born from a perfect imperfection.